Have you ever been at the end of a sales conversation with a seller and you feel like you are trying to convince the seller as to why they should work with you? Well, if you've ever been there, you've done something terribly wrong during your sales process. And so today, what I'm going to be going over are 4 questions that you can ask to get the sellers to sell themselves to you instead of the other way around. You see, the top closers in the country aren't convincing the sellers, or they're not telling the sellers reasons as to why the seller should work with them. What they're doing is they're using psychological hacks to get the seller to convince themselves the entire way through the process. That way, when you get to the end of the call and you present your offer, you know it's going to be a yes. Now, it all starts with the beginning of the call. What a lot of people do completely wrong is they start the call and they start pitching. So they will say something like, hey, let me tell you a little bit about the company. Let me tell you a little bit about us. We do this, we do that. This is our reviews. This is where we're located. And the seller doesn't care about any of that. Not only that, what you're doing is you are qualifying yourself to the seller instead of the other way around. So one of the first questions you can ask, I'll give you an example on an inbound lead, somebody that filled out a form on a Facebook ad or a Google ad. You would say, hey, I'm sure you saw a ton of ads online, but what specifically did you see that caused you to want to look into this a bit further? The reason that I'm asking that is I want the seller to start reminding themselves, why did they start looking into this further? What did they see that caused them to want to have a conversation about this? And immediately, this is the first step of them convincing themselves as to why they want to do this. So they might say something like, well, I really want to sell the house a lot quicker. I really don't want to have to deal with any of the showings. I really don't want to have to do any of the repairs. These are all reasons that they're reminding themselves as to why they want to work with you. You might be wondering, what if it's an outbound lead? What if we cold called them or we texted them? I would do the same thing, just slightly different. So instead of saying, what caused you to want to look into this further, I would have to frame that first. I would say, hey, I know we called you out of the blue, and I'm sure you get tons of calls about this. So what was it about the conversation that you had with Sally that caused you to maybe want to look into this a bit further? Now, I'm going to address the elephant in the room that yes, they get other cold calls, and yes, we called them out of the blue. So that way they don't just hit me with, well, you guys called me, what's your offer? So I can start the call that way, and I want them to start selling themselves to me. Now, after I've gotten them to convince themselves why they want to work with me, the next thing I'm going to do is start to get them to convince themselves why they want to do this now. So in our discovery phase, I will ask them questions about their current situation. I will start to find a vein, start to find some sort of problem that they're dealing with. And then my next question, once I find out that exact problem, is I'll ask them, how long has that been going on? Now, if it's been a long time, let's say that they've been dealing with it for 10 years, I'll ask the question just like this. I'll say, wow, well, you've been dealing with this for over a decade. I mean, what was it that came up recently that caused you to, want to do this now, though? Now, listen to the tone there. I would say, what was it that came up recently that caused you to want to do this now, though? Now, I want to put emphasis on the word now because I want them to start reminding themselves what was the trigger that caused them to want to act. Now, what this does is this builds urgency. So if you're getting to the end of your call and you are getting hit with things like, hey, this sounds good, let me give it a couple of days to think it over, or maybe I'll do this later, or they're saying, maybe I'll just keep the property, it's because you didn't build enough urgency. And this is one of the ways you do that. Now, what if the problem is very recent? They say like, oh, I've really only been thinking about this for the last couple of months. I'll say, really, what came up in the last couple of months that caused you to want to do this now, though? Same thing. They're going to start saying why they want to do this now. They're going to start selling themselves as to why now is a good option for them to be able to do this. And there's a saying I always tell my advanced students, when people verbalize, they internalize. So when they're starting to talk about it out loud, they're also starting to feel all of the reasons why that urgency is important. Now, the next question that you can ask works even when sellers aren't extremely motivated by their current situation. So there are 2 different types of sellers, and people can be a mix between both, but there are the people that are running away from a problem, and there's people that are running towards a solution. Not everybody is running away from a problem. Sometimes the sellers, they're fine with their bills. They're not in any financial distress. The house doesn't need a bunch of repairs. They're just running towards a solution. Now, this same question works even if they do have a big problem. You're just going to ask them this. You're going to say, so let's say you're able to sell this property. You're no longer having to deal with XYZ. I mean, what are you looking forward to the most about this next chapter of your life? Now, I'll give you more context. So I might not ask that question the same way every time. Let's say that they say, I really want to go move closer to my grandkids. I'm not going to say, what are you looking forward to the most about that next chapter of their life? I'm going to say, so what are you looking forward to the most about getting that time back with your grandkids? I'll ask something like that. Now, what I'm doing is I'm getting the seller seller to get excited about that future state. I'm getting them to attach themselves to that end result. So when they start telling me, oh my gosh, I can't wait to be there for the birthdays. I can't wait to be there for the big moments. I can't wait to start this next chapter of my life and I don't have to worry about these bills anymore. What they're doing is they're picturing that next chapter of their life. They're getting themselves to feel what it's going to feel like. And this is getting themselves to sell themselves as to why they want to do this. They're convincing themselves even more. And the best part about all of this is when you ask these questions, you are also building trust, because when people can feel those emotions with you, they build a connection with you and they feel like they can trust you. Now, it is very important that you ask all of these questions with the right tonality and also at the right time, because if you ask a question with the wrong tone or if you ask it out of place, the seller's just going to say, why are you asking that question, or why is that relevant? And that's why we train our advanced students every single day inside of our advanced school community. We have an Ask Me Anything call where we'll help you close your most likely to close deal. We have a phase breakdown, breaking down every single phase of our sales process, a role play, an objection handling call, and a live call review for you to be able to submit your calls of you implementing this process, us to listen to them and give you feedback. We also have a ton of other stuff like a Marketing Monday call. We teach you how to dispo your deals. We have underwriting calls, and we have a scaling call with one of the largest wholesalers in the country who built a company to $2 million per month. So if you want to check that out, I'll drop a link inside the description for our advanced group where you can apply, where we go a lot deeper on topics just like this. Now, the last question is going to be one of the most important questions when you are closing the deal. You want the seller to be selling themselves to you as to why they want to work with you, and you just tell them, hey, I can do that or I cannot. And so this is our commitment question. So during our sales process, we go really deep on what exact problem are they trying to solve? What are they trying to get to? What's that future state? And how much do they need to be able to solve that problem? Once we have all of that, we ask a very simple question. Mr. Seller, if I'm able to get you the $15,000 you needed to be able to get to that next property, we're able to do it in the next 2 weeks, and we help you with all of your stuff. If we could do all of that for you, what would you want the next steps to be? Now, the reason that I'm asking them what they want the next steps to be is because I want them to convince themselves that this is their idea. Now, I've been planting these seeds the entire time, and I've been gearing my conversation to lead towards this yes. So by the time I get to this point in my call, and I ask them what they want the next steps to be, they feel like all of this was their idea. The price was their idea. The reason to do this now was their idea. They're excited about the future state. So all I'm doing is saying, yes, I can help you with that. So those are 4 questions that you can ask immediately to be able to get more yeses from sellers and get themselves to sell themselves to you instead of the other way around. If you want more content just like this, make sure you like and subscribe for new videos every single week.